I want to talk about how I see the ego or the ego mind, or how it gets created in us. So I think by understanding how it gets created, for me it helps see how we can uncreate it in ourselves or step out of it. And the key for me comes back to what I call the state of natural mind, which is the unperturbed state of mind when life is okay. I think that this is our natural state when our physical needs are taken care of, when there's no danger, when there's no threat, then we feel okay inside. There's a natural counterpart. If everything is okay with us physiologically, we feel okay. And I think that's completely natural and is true, I would say, for all animals. It's an internal reflection of our physiological well-being. It's an inner well-being. And basically we feel at ease, we feel content, there's nothing missing, nothing we need, nothing to take care of. And then if some physiological or physical need arises, I'm just talking about us as biological beings at the moment, if some need arises where, cold or something that needs taken care of, we move out of the state of natural mind. We move into a state of, discontent, basically. Things aren't okay anymore. Things need attention. And our attention becomes focused on getting what we think we need or avoiding what we think we shouldn't have around us. And then when things are sorted out, when we've got what we need, ideally we should return back to the natural mind, the unperturbed state of mind. The sad joke about human beings is we seldom do that. If I watch other animals, pets, dogs, cats and things, most of the time they seem to be in a state of ease, contentment. They'll be temporarily disturbed by something, but they come back to a state of ease, contentment fairly easily. We, despite all our smartness and cleverness, tend to get stuck there. We get caught in a perturbed state of mind. So much so that I think we can live our lives thinking that's normal. And when we drop into a state of unperturbed state in meditation, we think, isn't this wonderful? We've dropped out of this sort of normal state of concern, tension, worry, planning, whatever. And another name given to that is, in Buddhist traditions, true nature. Our true nature isn't judging, attacking. It's at ease. That's our true nature. And there's no ego there. The ego isn't operating. In fact, there's not really a sense of individual self. There's a sense of me-ness, I-ness, awareing, but there's not that sense of a separate I that needs to take care of things. That comes when there's something that's needed, some danger, whatever it is, something's missing. Then the primary sense of an individual I comes in, which is connected with our body, of being a physical being, a biological being. That's really the fundamental nature of the ego. in our awareness, we create this model of me and the rest of the world. And it's a very useful model to create. Suddenly awareness needs to be focused on dealing with the world, making sure the body is safe, making sure the body gets what it needs. And so it's a natural mode of consciousness to separate out the body from the rest of the world, and so to begin to look after the body and its needs. So that, I would say, is really a fundamental mode of identity we have. It's I am a body. And I hear a lot of talk in sort of more conscious circles, you are not a body. You are just this, you're just pure awareness. We are bodies. I mean, we are something more than the body, yes, but to deny our identity with our body is to deny something really fundamental. And it's something we all know and we all feel. There's something primal about ourselves and being, as an individual, being this body. It's almost like there's a felt sense of identity there. And when we're in that mode, and that I think is the foundation of the ego, except the ego isn't a thing. When we're in that mode, we fall into a way of thinking, which is what we usually label ego. And I find there's no thing I can call my ego. If I look within myself, I don't find a separate sense of self that's an ego. I find there's the sense of me-ness, the sense of I-ness, which can easily get caught up in a lot of strange, weird thinking. It's very caught up in it. But it's a way of thinking that I fall into. And you could say the function of that way of thinking is to look after us, to make sure we're safe, we get what we need, to assess what's going on, look at the situation, see what is needed, see what needs to be done, and take action. So it's a very useful way of thinking that gets triggered when something needs attending to. So that's the first thing. It's a completely natural mode to fall into at times. And when it's not needed, then we should just drop back into being in natural mind, just drop back to true nature. Why we don't is because in our minds we start creating what we were talking about earlier, almost reality bubbles. We create a thought reality, and you can notice this happening in meditation, and it usually begins with some reflection upon our experience. You can be there, very quiet, at ease, at peace, and you notice how quiet it is, and this is very nice, and this is, I remember, oh yes, Ramana Maharshi talked about this. What did he say about it? Yeah, and yeah, okay, I must remember this. Yeah, that's good. And then we start thinking, and then you remember the person who gave you the Ramana Maharshi book, and you wonder how they're doing, and then you remember, God, I meant to call them. And before you know it, this little reality bubble starts getting created. And that is a story we start telling ourselves. And in that story, this separation happens again. There is a sense of I, and there is experience, and the sense of I is this, the ego starts coming in, is looking to see what needs to be done, what needs taken care of. And that way of functioning starts up all over again. not because there's anything necessarily to be taken care of in our physical environment. From the point of view of an organism, everything is fine, but in our mind we start getting into a reality bubble in which this sense of self starts separating out again, and then we start functioning. Its function is to take care of it. It starts trying to take care of us within that particular reality. I mean, it's basically like a dream. I mean, many teachers have said, we live in a dream world most of the time. We live in a variety of dreams. And just as with nightly dreams, when you're in a nightly dream, it is totally real, and you don't realise you're dreaming, and you have all these emotional reactions, and you get excited or fall in love or whatever it is in the dream, and it's real. It's very, very real, and you're operating there, and then you wake up and you think, what? And you probably notice the same thing happening in meditation. You can be caught up in some story, and there's emotions going on and feelings, and then you wake up and you think, what? That's one reason it's called awakening. And what I've been looking at myself recently is how each reality bubble we get caught in has its own emotional flavour. There's emotions in there. And by emotion, I mean there's a felt sense to it. And I should explain what I mean by felt sense. It's to do with the subtle body. There's the gross physical body, this stuff, and we have sensations in the physical body, whether it's touch sensations, feelings of movement, pressure, whatever. There's a whole range of physical sensations which we know in the gross body. The subtle body is also a feeling body. It has the same qualities of sensations, but they're not necessarily related to anything going on in the body. They're imagined sensations. A good analogy here is with imagination, visual imagination. I can see this room now. I can close my eyes and have images, whether it's of this room or anything else, imagination, imagined images. And they have the same quality as vision, but I'm not seeing the physical world. I'm having, you could say, subtle vision. I'm having imagination. And so the subtle body is, we have feelings, whether it's like, a love feeling would be, there's a certain quality in the heart we feel. Which doesn't mean that there may be nothing going on physiologically in the heart, but there's something in that area of the chest. We feel, we can pinpoint, we know it. And it's similar, whatever the feeling is, whether it's openness or pressure or weight or whatever. We use those words. Or if it's, wanting something, desiring something. There's often a feeling of the body almost like reaching forward. You can recognize when you desire something. Is that sort of thing. There's a movement. The opposite, fear, or avoidance, is like there's that sense of constriction and moving back. Or anger, there's that sort of wanting to change things. There's a felt sense that's there. And then there's the story. And the two feed each other. When there's a story, the story starts telling us something we need to do or not do, something we need to avoid, or something to stay still. That story triggers like the first impulse to action. And that's what we feel. Although there's nothing going on in the body, we feel that impulse. There's something moving. In fact, the word emotion means to move out of, to move out. It's from the Latin ex motare, to move out. And so it's that sense of some sort of movement into the world in some way, which doesn't get moved, but it's there as a subtle sense. And when that's there, that will also feed thoughts, because the two are intimately connected. And so there's an emotional quality to the different realities. It's like, the way I've been describing it for myself is it's like a flavour. It's like whatever dream we get into, each dream, and I'm talking about dreams, not nightly dreams, but in our reality dreams, there's a flavour to it. There's a sort of a subtle flavour which we can recognise. And then within that reality, the ego mind starts doing its job. Within that particular reality, it starts looking at, what I need, what could go wrong, what I need to do, etc., and starts doing its work, planning, whatever, taking over, hoping, expecting, fantasizing. But it's all taking place within this little dream bubble that's been created. And it's, as I say, it's just a way of thinking that we fall into. But it can be very dominating. It just takes us over, because it becomes as important as getting water when you're thirsty, or getting air when there's no air. It's as important. It seems as important for our survival, and so it just dominates our thinking. And what that does, the very nature of that way of thinking, is it creates discontent, which takes us out of natural mind. That way of thinking, then we were in natural mind, but we get into this thought bubble, and then the ego mode starts coming in with its own particular story, feeds the discontent, and suddenly, natural mind, don't know where that is. True nature's gone. We're not into acceptance or allowing. We're into worrying, planning, judging, hoping, fantasizing. All of that stuff is back again. So it's almost like our awareness gets hijacked by this way of thinking. It gets hijacked. And what I've been looking at recently is how flavour of each dream in a way is creating a sub-personality. There's a sub-personality we get into when we're feeling there's something, we've got to do something. There's the doing sub-personality, you've got to get this done, and that has its own particular set of fears and things. There's the sort of depressed sub-personality, which wants to be left alone because I haven't got energy to do anything, and that's sort of like, don't come near me, I haven't got the energy for it. It's a different sub-personality, so the ego starts taking on different sub-personalities. Or there's the love sub-personality of just wanting that connection, that feeding. And it seems the way to step out of this is not by battling them. That becomes the spiritual sub-personality, saying I shouldn't have these non-spiritual sub-personalities. And so you get into this thing, my real reality is this cosmic blissful being, and I need to get rid of these other things which are stopping me, and so it just becomes the same game. How can I control my sub-personalities in order to get what I want and be? But it's about just raising awareness of what is going on. And again, when we talk about raising awareness, and it's often, it gets translated into higher awareness, higher states of consciousness, or whatever. It's not really raising awareness, it's more just opening awareness, I think is a better way of putting it. Just opening the awareness to what is, to just noticing what is. And so what I've been exploring is, when I notice I've got caught in a reality, a particular reality, whatever it is noticing its flavour is the best word I can find for it. Noticing its flavour. It has this flavour. It's a sort of, say, a subtle emotional thing, but there's a sort of there's an energetic quality to it. To each reality thing we get caught in, there's an energetic quality. And just by opening up to that thing of, we were talking about earlier, curiosity, but in that just openness, like, okay, what's it like when I'm feeling this way, when I'm in this particular reality bubble? What's it actually like? What's the felt quality like? And I mean, I think many of you discovered in meditation, when you start opening up to something like that, whether it's the discomfort in the body or anything, when you start actually opening up, it generally begins to dissolve. You actually see this often, there's nothing there. It's like this thing which seems so solid and real sort of turns into tissue paper, which then just turns into air and just disappears. It's like it wasn't actually there, it was just a creation. But we gave that creation reality by believing in it, and all the while we believed in it, it was real and controlled us. But as soon as you step back and see this is just something that has been created in the mind, and that's all it is just an imagination in the mind. When you see it for that, you just see through it, and it just begins to just dissolve. And when that happens, when that dissolves, you just drop back into true nature, because it was that what was keeping you out of it, that belief in that reality, and the belief in all the things that need to be taken care of and done and looked after, they dissolve with it into what was keeping you out of natural mind has gone. So it's this same basic principle, just bringing awareness to what is, but noticing, for me, just noticing subtler qualities of what is that are not normally noticed. So just noticing that felt sense of a reality that we get caught in, whatever it is. And we were doing a little bit of that in meditation on Monday nights occasionally, just noticing when we got caught in a thought, just noticing what that thought, what was the trace it left in a body. Because when you're caught in a thought, it leaves some trace in the body, some emotional, or in the subtle body more, just some feeling, whether it's a sort of, that moving forward urgency, or sort of pulling back, or a whatever it was, openness. There's different qualities. And then I think what we're doing here in practice, as well as stepping out of the thoughts, and that's what all this is about, is stepping out of those thought realities. We come back into the present, in the natural mind. We're also bringing awareness to true nature, to what it's like. But without awareness, yes, there's just ease, there's contentment, there's allowing, accepting what is, but there's not a conscious awareness of that. It's just happening. And I think one thing we're doing in meditation is beginning to bring awareness to that state of natural mind, to our true nature, and beginning to notice consciously how it actually feels, to beginning to notice that sense of ease, contentment, that the mind is still. The stillness, I mean, one aspect of the stillness is the thinking mind has become still. It's no longer operating. The ego mind has become still. And so we begin to notice that stillness. So it's like we're we're opening our awareness, not just to what goes on in terms of the thoughts and things, we're opening our awareness to how it actually feels to be in that natural state.